Morgan Blackwood hadn't spoken more than 10 words to another human being in nearly 3 years. After the war, he'd retreated to the farthest corner of Wyoming Territory, building a small ranch in a valley so remote that even the Cheyenne rarely ventured there. His only companions were his horses, a few head of cattle, and the ghosts of men he'd killed. The letter that shattered his isolation arrived on a bitter January morning, carried by a half-frozen courier who'd nearly died finding Blackwood's hidden homestead. From Judge Carrington in Laramie, the young man explained through chattering teeth, said it was worth my life to deliver it personally. Morgan read it twice, his weathered face betraying nothing of the turmoil the judge's words stirred within him. His brother James, the respectable Blackwood, the one who'd built a legitimate business while Morgan had built a reputation with his guns, was dead. Murdered, according to Carrington, though the local authorities had ruled it an accident. More surprising was what James had left behind: the Frontier Express, a stagecoach line running between Laramie and the booming silver mines at Thunder Basin. And according to the judge, James had named Morgan as his sole heir. "There's more," Carrington had written. "Your brother was transporting something valuable when he died, something people are still looking for. Come quickly and quietly. Trust no one." 3 days later, Morgan rode into Laramie for the first time in nearly a decade. The town had grown, spreading outward from the railroad like a stain. New buildings, new faces, new money, but the same old greed. Judge Carrington's office sat above the town's only bank. The judge himself was older than Morgan remembered. His once imposing frame now stooped with age, but his eyes remained sharp as a hawk's. "You look like hell, Blackwood," he greeted without preamble. "But you're alive, which is more than most expected after you disappeared." "James is dead," Morgan replied, his voice rough from disuse. "That's all that matters now." Carrington nodded, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. "Your brother built something valuable here. The Frontier Express isn't just a stagecoach line. It's the lifeblood of commerce between Laramie and the mines. Mail, payroll, passengers, and occasionally items of a more sensitive nature." "What was he carrying when he died?" The judge's expression tightened. "I don't know exactly. James was careful about such things. But whatever it was, the Carrington Mining Company wants it badly enough that they've been trying to buy the Express since before your brother was cold in the ground." "And when buying didn't work?" "Accidents began happening, coaches damaged, drivers intimidated, routes blocked." Carrington sipped his whiskey. Nothing that could be directly tied to Carrington, of course. Morgan absorbed this, his mind already calculating angles and threats as it had during the war. "Why me?" "James knew what I became. We hadn't spoken in years." "Because he trusted you above all others," came a new voice from the doorway. Morgan turned to find a young woman regarding him with undisguised assessment. She couldn't have been more than 20, dressed in practical riding clothes rather than the fashionable attire most town women favored. A knife was visible at her belt, and her stance suggested she knew how to use it. "This is Sarah Hawkins," Carrington explained. "Your brother's ward. She's been running the Express since his death." "Not very successfully," she admitted with blunt honesty. "We've lost 2 coaches and a driver in the past month. The remaining men are talking about quitting." "Miss Hawkins has a unique set of skills," Carrington added. "Her father was a Pawnee scout for the Army. She can track a butterfly across bare rock, according to your brother." Morgan studied her more carefully. The mixed heritage was visible now that he looked: high cheekbones, copper skin, but with eyes the color of a summer storm. "If you're so capable, why do you need me?" "Because the Carrington Mining Company doesn't just want the Express," she replied. "They want what your brother found, and they're willing to kill anyone who stands in their way." The Frontier Express headquarters occupied a full block at the edge of town. A large stable, repair shop, office, and driver's quarters surrounding a central yard. As Morgan followed Sarah through the compound, he noted signs of both quality and neglect. The coaches were well maintained, but the buildings needed repair, and there weren't enough men for an operation this size. "Your brother employed 15 men before he died," Sarah explained, leading him to the main office. "We're down to 7, and 2 of those are considering the railroad's offer of safer work." Inside, maps covered one wall. the routes of the Frontier Express marked in red, with annotations about terrain, water sources, and potential dangers. A large desk dominated the room, its surface covered with ledgers and correspondence. James kept meticulous records, Sarah said, unlocking a cabinet behind the desk. Including these. She withdrew a leather-bound journal and a small metal box. He started recording his suspicions about the Carrington Mining Company 6 months ago. Strange shipments. Men who didn't fit the usual miner profile. Unusual security around certain areas of their operation. Morgan took the journal, leafing through pages filled with his brother's precise handwriting. He believed they found something besides silver. Something they're willing to kill for, Sarah confirmed. 3 weeks before he died, your brother took a private charter to the North Ridge, an area Carrington claims is played out. He returned with this. She opened the metal box to reveal a stone about the size of a man's thumb, unremarkable except for the faint blue glow it emitted in the shadowed room. What is it? Morgan asked, reaching toward it but stopping short of touching it. James called it blue fire. Said it was more valuable than gold or silver. She closed the box. The night he died, he was meeting someone from the Geological Survey in Denver. He never arrived. Accident on Devil's Pass, Morgan recalled from the judge's letter. Coach went over the edge during a storm. Sarah's expression hardened. There was no storm that night, and James was the best driver in the territory. He could navigate Devil's Pass blindfolded. The implications settled over Morgan like a shroud. His brother, the respectable Blackwood, had been murdered for whatever secret this strange blue stone represented. The regular run to Thunder Basin leaves tomorrow morning, Sarah continued. Carrington's men will be watching. It's the perfect opportunity to see what we're facing. Morgan raised an eyebrow. You're assuming I'm staying. Your brother believed you would. She met his gaze directly. He said that beneath all that blood and guilt, you were still a Blackwood. And Blackwoods don't abandon family legacies. The words struck deeper than Morgan cared to admit. He'd spent years trying to bury the Blackwood name beneath the legend of the man he'd become during the war, a scout and sharpshooter whose exploits had earned him both commendations and nightmares. One run, he conceded finally. Then I decide. The Thunder Basin route was 30 miles of the most challenging terrain in the territory, crossing 2 mountain passes, a river ford, and miles of exposed prairie. Under normal circumstances, it was a grueling 10-hour journey. With the threat of Carrington's interference, Sarah estimated it could take considerably longer. Morgan spent the evening examining the coach and selecting horses with the critical eye of a man whose life had often depended on such details. The vehicle itself was a Concorde, the finest stagecoach money could buy, with a reinforced undercarriage and superior suspension. James had spared no expense in building his business. Your brother modified this one himself, explained Eli, the elderly stable master who'd stayed loyal to the Express. Added compartments for special cargo, reinforced the boot, even installed a rifle scabbard under the driver's seat. He was expecting trouble, Morgan observed. James Blackwood wasn't one to be caught unprepared, Eli agreed. Much like yourself, from what I hear. They departed at dawn, with Morgan driving and Sarah riding shotgun, a position she clearly knew well, judging by her comfortable handling of the coach's defense rifle. The only passengers were a mining engineer returning to Thunder Basin and a drummer carrying samples of the latest mining equipment. The first 10 miles passed without incident, the powerful team of 6 horses maintaining a steady pace along the well-maintained road. As they approached the first mountain pass, however, Morgan sensed a change in the atmosphere, a stillness that experienced frontiersmen recognized as warning. Ridgeline. 2 o'clock, Sarah murmured, her keen eyes scanning the terrain. 3 riders. Morgan nodded, having already spotted them. Just watching for now. They'll make their move at the narrowest part of the pass. His prediction proved accurate. As the coach entered a section where sheer cliffs rose on one side and a steep drop fell away on the other, a tree suddenly crashed down across the road ahead. Morgan reined the horses to a hard stop, as riders appeared both ahead and behind. Carrington's men? He asked quietly, assessing their options. Some of them, Sarah confirmed, her rifle already positioned. The one in the black coat is Fletcher, their head of security. Fletcher approached alone, his hand conspicuously away from his holstered revolver. "Roads blocked, folks. Unfortunate accident. Might take hours to clear." "Funny how these accidents only happen to Frontier Express coaches," Sarah replied coldly. The man smiled without humor. "Miss Hawkins, still running this doomed operation, I see." His gaze shifted to Morgan. "And you must be the infamous Blackwood brother. Your reputation precedes you." "As does yours," Morgan replied evenly. 3 stagecoach robberies, 2 dead drivers, all conveniently unsolved. Fletcher's smile vanished. "Careful with accusations, Blackwood. This territory runs on Carrington silver. The company has friends in every office that matters." "What do you want?" Morgan asked, though he already knew the answer. "Just a friendly business proposition. Mr. Carrington is still interested in acquiring the Express. His offer has increased to $10,000, generous for a failing enterprise." "Not interested." Fletcher shrugged. "Then I'm afraid this road remains impassable. Unless," he glanced meaningfully at the coach, "you're carrying something that belongs to Mr. Carrington. Return it, and perhaps we can clear this path." "We're carrying mail and passengers," Sarah said. "Nothing more." "Search the coach," Fletcher ordered his men. "Carefully." What followed was a tense standoff. While Fletcher's men examined the coach, Morgan calculated odds and angles with the cold precision that had kept him alive through the war. 5 men against 2, but with the advantage of the coach's elevated position and Sarah's proven marksmanship. The search revealed nothing of interest to Fletcher's men. Morgan had anticipated this confrontation and ensured that the mysterious blue stone remained safely hidden in Laramie. "Seems we're at an impasse," Fletcher finally conceded. "But this is just the beginning, Blackwood. The Express will be ours, one way or another." "Clear the road," Morgan replied, his quiet tone carrying more menace than a shouted threat. Something in his voice, or perhaps his reputation, gave Fletcher pause. After a moment's consideration, he signaled his men to move the fallen tree. "This isn't over," he warned as the coach prepared to continue. "No," Morgan agreed, "it isn't." The remainder of the journey passed without further incident, though Morgan remained vigilant for additional ambushes. They reached Thunder Basin by mid-afternoon, a chaotic boomtown that had sprung up around the Silver Strikes 3 years earlier. While Sarah handled the mail delivery and passenger arrangements, Morgan took the opportunity to observe the Carrington Mining Company's operation firsthand. The main office dominated the town square, a 3-story structure that spoke of wealth and permanence, in a place where most buildings were thrown together with green lumber and optimism. More interesting was the heavily guarded warehouse at the edge of town, where wagons arrived and departed with suspicious regularity for a mining operation that supposedly shipped its silver directly to the railroad at Laramie. "They're bringing something in, not taking it out," Morgan observed when he rejoined Sarah at the local hotel. "And whatever it is requires armed guards and secrecy." "James noticed the same thing," she replied, spreading a map across the bed. "He tracked several shipments to this location." Her finger indicated a spot several miles north of the main mining operation. "There's nothing there according to official records. No registered claims, no known silver deposits. But your blue stone came from there." She nodded. "James bribed one of their wagon drivers for information." The man disappeared the next day. The return journey to Laramie was tense but uneventful, suggesting that Fletcher had reported their encounter to his superiors and a new strategy was being formulated. This gave Morgan time to consider his next move. By the time they reached the Express headquarters, he had made his decision. Whatever his brother had discovered, it was significant enough to die for. Morgan owed it to James to uncover the truth and to ensure that those responsible faced justice. "I'm staying," he informed Sarah as they unhitched the team. "But we do this my way." Over the next week, Morgan transformed the Frontier Express. Security measures were implemented. Routes were varied to prevent predictable ambushes. The remaining drivers were trained in defensive techniques Morgan had learned during the war. More significantly, he began recruiting new men, not the usual stagecoach drivers, but veterans he'd served with. Men who knew how to fight, how to watch each other's backs, and how to keep secrets. "You're building an army," Sarah observed as the 3rd such man arrived from Colorado. "I'm evening the odds," Morgan corrected. Carrington has resources and influence. We need skill and loyalty. While rebuilding the Express's operational capacity, Morgan and Sarah continued investigating the mystery of the blue stone. Judge Harrington connected them with a professor from the university in Denver who agreed to examine the specimen. Remarkable, Professor Whitman declared after several tests. It appears to be a form of phosphorescent ore, but with properties I've never encountered. The energy it emits is consistent and seemingly inexhaustible. Energy? Morgan questioned. Light without heat, power without combustion. The professor's eyes gleamed with scientific excitement. Imagine a lamp that never needs oil. A power source that doesn't require coal or steam. The applications would be revolutionary. The implications were staggering. If Carrington had discovered a significant deposit of this material, it would be worth far more than any silver mine. It would represent the future of industry itself. This is bigger than we thought, Sarah realized. It's not just about the Express or even your brother's murder. This could change everything, how cities are powered, how machines operate. Which explains why Carrington is willing to kill for it, Morgan concluded, and why we need to find the source before they secure it completely. Their opportunity came unexpectedly. One of Morgan's new recruits, a former cavalry scout named Jenkins, returned from Thunder Basin with crucial information. Carrington was planning a major operation at the secret northern site, bringing in specialized equipment and additional security. Whatever they're doing, it's happening in 3 days, Jenkins reported. Every available man is being pulled from the main mine. Even Fletcher will be there. Morgan recognized the opportunity immediately. With Carrington's forces concentrated at the northern site, the main office in Thunder Basin would be minimally defended and might contain the documentation they needed to understand the full scope of the operation. The plan they formulated was daring, but feasible. Sarah would lead a regular stagecoach run to Thunder Basin, providing a legitimate reason for their presence. Meanwhile, Morgan and 2 of his most trusted men would access the Carrington offices under cover of darkness. What they couldn't anticipate was Fletcher's foresight. The security chief had left behind more men than expected, including several watching the Express's movements specifically. The infiltration began smoothly enough. Using skills honed during the war, Morgan bypassed the office's locks and located Carrington's private files. What they contained confirmed their suspicions. Detailed surveys of the northern site, scientific analyses of the blue ore, which Carrington's documents called luminite, and projections of its potential value that reached astronomical figures. Most damning were the records of obstacles removed, a clinical accounting of bribes, threats, and eliminations that included James Blackwood's name alongside a payment to someone identified only as the engineer. Their discovery was interrupted by the arrival of Fletcher himself, who had apparently anticipated their move and returned from the northern site specifically to trap them. I must admit, Blackwood, you've proven more resourceful than expected, Fletcher said as his men surrounded the office. But this ends tonight. What Fletcher hadn't counted on was Sarah's involvement. While Morgan had been accessing the office, she had positioned herself on a nearby roof with the long-range rifle that had been her father's legacy. As Fletcher's men closed in, precise shots disabled 2 of them instantly, creating momentary confusion that allowed Morgan and his companions to break for their escape route. The ensuing chase through Thunder Basin became the stuff of local legend, a running gun battle that left Fletcher wounded, 3 of his men dead, and the town's main street in shambles. Morgan and his team escaped, but not before Sarah took a bullet in her shoulder. Worth it, she insisted, as they rode hard for Laramie, the stolen documents secure in Morgan's saddlebags. We know the truth now. We can prove what Carrington's been doing. But proving criminal activity and stopping a powerful corporation were different challenges. When they presented their evidence to Judge Harrington, his expression grew increasingly grave. This goes beyond local law, he concluded. Carrington has federal contracts, political connections all the way to Washington. Even with these documents, bringing him down through legal channels could take years. We don't have years, Morgan replied. According to these surveys, they're preparing to extract the main deposit within weeks. Once it's gone, the evidence of their crimes goes with it. The solution, when it came to him, was both elegant and fitting. The Frontier Express had been built to connect communities, to transport valuable cargo safely across dangerous terrain. Now it would serve its purpose in a way James Blackwood could never have anticipated. 3 days later, a special edition of the Laramie Sentinel hit the streets, containing complete documentation of Carrington's criminal enterprise. The murders, the claim jumping, the bribery of officials. Copies were simultaneously delivered to newspapers in Denver, Cheyenne, and Salt Lake City, along with samples of the luminite ore and scientific analysis of its potential. The public reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Telegraphs carried the story eastward. Federal marshals descended on Thunder Basin. Carrington himself was arrested attempting to flee to Canada. The northern site was secured by government geologists, who confirmed the presence of the largest known deposit of luminite in the world. Rather than allowing it to become the property of any single entity, the government declared it a federal resource to be developed for the benefit of the nation. In the aftermath, the Frontier Express found itself with an unexpected new purpose. As the official transportation service for the government scientists and engineers now flooding into the territory, its future was secure. Your brother would be proud, Sarah told Morgan as they watched a coach depart for the northern site, now officially designated as the Federal Energy Research Station. He always said the Express was about more than just moving people and packages. It was about connecting the future to the present. Morgan nodded, still unaccustomed to the weight of responsibility he'd inherited. James was always the visionary. I was just the soldier. And now? He looked around at what they'd built together. Not just a stagecoach line, but a new beginning for the territory and perhaps the nation. The luminite discovery would transform how people lived, worked, and traveled, creating possibilities neither Blackwood brother could have imagined. Now I'm both, he decided, carrying on his vision but ready to defend it my way if necessary. Sarah smiled, her hand finding his with the easy familiarity they'd developed through shared danger and purpose. The Blackwood brothers, one discovered the future, the other made sure it arrived safely.